Hello and welcome back to Jack Knives Reviews. I'm of course your host, Jack Knives. And welcome back to Wrestling Month. Now that we've talked about a bad biopic about a great wrestler, let's talk about an amazing biopic about the greatest women's wrestler of all time, Mildred Burke, in the new biopic movie, Queen of the Ring. In the 1930s, women were not allowed to wrestle as it was seen as too dangerous. A young single mother named Mildred Burke became trained by a reluctant man named Billy Wolfe, who becomes her manager. The more Mildred proves people wrong about professional wrestling, the more she changes the barriers of what it means to be a professional wrestler, an athlete, and eventually, a legend. There's an old philosophy that refers to rocks in a pond. What that means is when you throw a rock in a pond, the waves ripple outwardly in all different directions, but the central focal point is the rock. Mildred Burke was the definition of that. Not even realizing in her heyday just what her accomplishments, what her actual abilities and teachings actually did for the world of wrestling, way beyond her scope of life. She's a 3-time women's champion, the first ever NWA women's champion, and held the title nearly 20 years. And unlike Fabulous Moolah, who broke the record, she actually defended it on a regular basis. Her heyday being from the 1930s all the way to the 1950s, when she eventually would retire. But her wrestling and her ability to draw a crowd, mic work, being trained by her then husband Billy Wolfe, who is not necessarily the greatest guy, but he was a necessary wrestler to show her the ropes, allowed her to draw in more women, and slowly broke down the borders of barriers of allowing women to wrestle women. At the time she started, women's wrestling was outlawed. Specifically, women versus women, because they couldn't have women fighting each other because it would rouse so many people with their evil ways and, basic conservative views back in the day that seem to resonate more now than anything. It was only a matter of time before the barrier of women's wrestling eventually crumbled. And not only that barrier, but women's mixed race wrestling. She was the highest paid athlete of all time at one point, making nearly $1 million. And considering the time in which that was impossibly unheard of. This movie talks about nearly every aspect of her life, from her beginning all the way to her prime, when she would eventually become the champion. And it tells her struggles, it shows her as a human first, a mother first, and a person so determined in herself that she didn't care what anyone else thought. And it's honestly great and inspiring. The entire movie feels like a love letter to wrestling. I legitimately forgot about 10 minutes in that it was Emily Bett Rickards playing Mildred Burke. I knew her as Felicity Smoke from the Arrowverse, and when I came to that realization it was the same actress, I was blown away. Her performance is legitimately fantastic. It is on par, if not better, than half of the biopics I've ever seen. It's probably one of those times where it felt genuine, felt real, it felt like the rest of the cast had to work off of her, and she carried this movie. She was so good. Not to say any of the other cast was bad. In fact, Josh Lucas, who plays Billy Wolfe, also did a great job. I'm not really super familiar with his work, but man, did he make me want to hate him. And not in a evil, bad guy kind of way, like in an actual, like, oh, I know people like this. Like, this is a monster man. There's so many actors who played iconic wrestlers from women's past. Francesca Eastwood plays Mae Young, and it's honestly hilarious and fun that they don't shy away from the fact that Mae Young was just out and out openly gay, and she didn't give a damn what anyone thought. It's kind of refreshing now that people accept her now, but back then it was very keep it on the down low. The aspects of wrestling that they talk about are done in a way that is respectful to the craft of wrestling, and yet also introducing it to a non-wrestling audience. There is one or two things that they do slightly overlook as far as old school wrestling, where a lot of modern wrestling fans may not really understand. For example, that old school wrestling matches were 60 minutes long and came at a 2 out of 3 falls. When they say old school wrestling was hardcore, they meant it. It was also fun to see cameos, actors that I haven't seen in quite a while. Deborah Ann Wall plays Gladys Gillum. That was a nice surprise. I love Deborah Ann Wall. Kelly Berglund plays Nell Stewart. Kaylee Farmer, aka Camille, plays June Byers, and she was perfect. Like, she was perfect casting to play June Byers. I mean, because when I think of the character of Camille, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of like a modern interpretation of how June Byers would be. And so it was kind of perfect casting. There's other cameos from other wrestlers. If you pay close attention, you might see people like Naomi, Jim Cornette, and even a couple little hints here and there of people from the past of wrestling. It truly feels like this is a true love letter to wrestling. Not just wrestling's past, but wrestling's present. One of the things that Mildred Burke did, which is a legacy that many people may not even know. In the 50s, she actually went overseas to Japan to teach women how to wrestle. At the time, women weren't really allowed to do many athletic things, so they felt that pro wrestling was kind of a men's only thing, much like it was here. But she taught the first women how to wrestle in Japan, the aspects of it, the dynamics of it, and eventually her teachings would eventually become what we know as Joshi. It's kind of crazy to think that the modern day female wrestlers are inspired by Joshi, and that Joshi was inspired by an American woman wrestler. Her legacy cannot be understated. What she did, all doing it as a single mother. The woman is not just an icon. She is a legend amongst legends, and truly is the only Queen of the Ring. I give Queen of the Ring 5 out of 5. Have you seen Queen of the Ring? Let me know in the comments down below. Come back next time where I've got one final surprise for Wrestling Month.